Good evening. Welcome in daily UPSC editorial audio program. MSP can be maximum sensible policy times of India. Affirmative action for persons, not groups. The Economic Times. Why India needs deep industrialization. The Hindu. Now the full editorial. MSP can be maximum sensible policy with the times of India. Why are farmers protesting again? Because they want an unsustainable system built by politicians to continue. Ashok Gulati, who worked on setting Government of India's support price for crops, gives the lowdown on causes, distortions, and solutions. Ashok Gulati, the writer, is Infosys chair professor for agriculture. Farmers are at it again, marching towards Delhi with the list of demands they want Government of India to fulfill. There are many voices and demands. It is useful to break it down to core issues. Minimum support prices (MSPs) of 23 crops should receive a statutory legal backing. MSP to be fixed at 50% above the comprehensive cost of production. This includes actual cost incurred to grow crops and assumed values for other items such as family labor, loan waiver, and pensions. The grab bag of demand also spans trade policy, such as pulling out of WTO. These demands are better understood by making sense of the underlying cause. Therefore, to get a clearer picture, this agitation needs to be seen through the political economy of Punjab as it in, encapsulates the core issues. Why does Punjab matter? Punjab's peasantry is the most prosperous in the country. Punjab's agriculture is fully irrigated. Punjab farmers get free power, highly subsidized fertilizers, and open-ended assured procurements for wheat and paddy. In fact, there are years when procurement in Punjab, especially for paddy, exceeds the production of paddy in the state. It shows that paddy is coming from as far as eastern Uttar Pradesh and Bihar to be sold in Punjab at market prices of paddy in these states are often 50 to 25% below the MSP, and there is hardly any procurement by the state agencies in those states. Who pays for this agitators role of Punjab's mandis? Everyone in the procurement system knows how it works, and they profit from it. Aditya's commission agents gain by charging 2.5% commission, and Punjab government gains by charging 6% for mandi fee and other fees on it. It used to be 12% before GST regime. The bill is picked up by Government of India, which runs the country's food security program. Corporation of India (FCI) execute Government of India's food program. This system has helped political parties of Punjab promise free power to farmers, which is underwritten by the money transferred by Government of India. If everything is being working smoothly, why are farmers restive? The real problem of Indian farmers in general and Punjab farmers in particular is that their real incomes are increasing very modestly. PM Modi promised doubling of incomes by 2022-23 over a base of 2.15 to 16. It raised their expectations, but their dream remains unfulfilled. So the real issue is how one can augment farmers' real income without much risk. What's holding back income in this system of subsidies? Punjab's farmers have high productivity of their main crops, wheat and rice, as they are fully irrigated and use high doses of subsidized fertilizers, but their prices are constrained, especially when exports are banned. Stocking limits are imposed on private traders, and on the top of this, FCI unloads wheat and right as prices way below their economic cost. This amounts to nothing short of dumping to bring down market prices to almost MSP or even below that, so that FCI is able to procure enough grains. Why do governments do this? Unver, urban consumers bias. The policy is geared to helping urban consumers, even if it is at the cost of farmers. It is more so when under PM Garib Kisan Kalyan Yojana. More than 800 million get free wheat or rice every month. What is the fallout of this policy? If Government of India policy does not allow the markets to operate, especially when market prices are higher than MSP, farmers end up losers. So they cla- clamor for higher and higher MSP based on the unrealistic comprehensive cost. The difference between what farmers want and Government of India's current cost calculation for MSP is about 25 to 30% in most crops. Is the country ready for face food inflation of 25 to 30% if farmers' demand of MSP based on comprehensive cost is accepted? The whole idea of MSP was that this should be the minimum price guaranteed to farmers, but now it seems in case of wheat and rice, this this has become the maximum price. What's the way out? Farm income augmentation has to be through diversification to high value crops and livestock. It needs a different package that builds proper value chains from producers to consumers with minimum risk. Think of the Amul model in dairy. Punjab is lagging here. Both Government of India and the state governments need to come up with a joint package 50-50 to enable Punjab's farmer to come out of staple crops, especially rice. They need to move to higher value agri products and tap exports. Finally, can Government of India agree to current demands? Agreeing to these demands will mean physical stability will go for a toss and food inflation will rise. No government can afford to accept these demands. The frequently invoked Swaminathan Committee report on comprehensive cost was released in 2006. Why wasn't it implemented? The simple answer is that rational policymakers will avoid this route, and that is exactly what Manmohan Singh and his team did. Affirmative action for persons, not groups. The Economic Times. Last week, the Supreme Court reserved judgment on whether a state government is empowered to make sub-classification in SC/ST quotas for deprived and weaker castes in these groups in admission and public jobs. The issue before the top court was whether the Punjab Scheduled Caste and backward classes reserved in Services Act 2006, which provided Valmikis and Mazhabi Six, with first preference reservation over 50% of the total seats reserved for Supreme Courts for scheduled caste is valid. The Chief Justice constituted the seven-judge bench for a five-judge bench in 2020 doubted the correctness of the decision in the 2004 EV Chinna versus State of Andhra Pradesh case. In this case, a five-judge bench has set aside a similar law in Andhra Pradesh that created sub-classifications with the SC category. The Punjab government argued with the apex court that Chennai, Chennai had wrongly interpreted scheduled caste as one homogeneous class, with the purpose of reservations is to help communities overcome generational and systematic hurdles. The bench correctly has said that any sub classification will require a set of criteria. You can't just dole out quotas. The theoretically an efficient system, efficient selection system is critical to ensuring that quotas benefit the large person, not just communities. It must consider parameters beyond SC/ST subgroup identities such as family and individual wealth, income, education, rural and urban, and gender to create a multidimensional index that objectively assesses comparative disadvantage within the SC/ST category. Transparency is key to the quota process being effective for the purpose it was created. No point providing such affirmative action to say a wealthy Dalit or denying it to a badly off Brahmin. In other words, individual over groups. Why India needs deep industrialization? The Hindu. Kalai Kalai Var, Kalai Varasan A. assistant professor at the Madras Institute of Developed Studies, India, and visiting research fellow at King's College London. The COVID-19 pandemic changed the way we think about our economic future. Globalization is now in retreat. Industrial policy and strategic state-led economic interventions are back on the menu everywhere. The Inflation Reduction Act in the US, European Green Deal, and India's Atmanirbhar Bharat are prominent examples. India's growth momentum has sustained India's recovery relatively quickly from the pandemic, yet it has entered a phase of premature deindustrialization. The fruits of high growth were shaped by the small minority worsening pre-existing gaps. High-end cars get sold out. Common people struggle to cope with high food prices. This fault line is built into the structure of India's growth. This takes us to a long-standing question: why has India not been able to break out of industrial stagnation and generate employment? Raghuram Rajan and Rohit Lamba offer an unconventional perspective in breaking the mold, reimagining India's economic future. They bet their money not on manufacturing-led growth but on high-skills, service-driven growth. Why break the mold now? In 75 years, India has not been able to industrialize sufficiently. Its manufacturing share in output and employment has always been stagnant mm, and below 20%, except during the dream run to 2003 to 2008. Even the 1991 economic reforms, which came with the promise of labor intensive industrialization, didn't alter this reality. India is now at the crossroad. Its industrial investment is stagnating, with high levels of unemployment and chronic disgust. Unemployment is trade deficit, largely driven by imported goods, has been widening. India is not even producing the goods it consumes, let alone exporting. In that context, Rajan and Lamba's argument to promote high skills services powered by information technology to stimulate manufacturing is a reversal of classical wisdom, which is that services growth rests on manufacturing growth. This is at odds with India's current industrial policy and may not be the solution. In fact, it could even make things worse. First, employment elasticity of service-led growth is poor. India's experience with service-driven growth since the late 1980s had two negative implications. First, it could not absorb the labor existing agriculture in the same way that manufacturing would have. Second, the service sector required a large, highly skilled workforce that India could not adequately supply. Even as the sector absorbed some labor which migrated to cities, it was deeply unequal. The relative wages of workers with a college degree were much higher than those without one. Inequality from service-driven growth is thus much higher than from manufacturing-led growth. The Gini index of inequality for regular wages in the service sector was 44 compared to 35 for manufacturing. Periodic labor force survey 2021-22. Second, early investments in higher education contributed to the near abandonment of mass school education. These higher education institutions cultivated self-serving elites who played a role in India's IT revolution while contributing to industrial stagnation. Investments in human capitals were deeply unequal from the get-go. India is one of the world's most unequal countries in terms of education. Yasheng Huang, a Chinese economist, said rural entrepreneurship was able to grow out of the traditional agriculture sector on a massive scale. In China, thus the rural Indian, in contrast, hampered by the poor endowment of human capital, were not able to start entrepreneurial ventures remotely on the scale of the Chinese. This Third, the return of education differ across classes and social groups. School enrollment is high. Higher education is not as inaccessible as it was earlier, but the differential quality of schooling feeds into a quality of higher education, which feeds into labor market outcomes. The high skills services which would should and traditional elite, but not the majority. First generation graduates from colleges in rural areas and small towns. The majority of these students reap poor returns on their investments in education. The poor quality of most state-run schools and colleges is closely linked to the elite's renunciation of public education. Even as these fault lines are new forms of class divide in India, they reflect older ones rooted in the caste system. A culturally rooted diagnosis. Why has industrialization been stagnant in India? The lack of mass education meant that an important cultural prerequisite for industrialization was missing. Economic historian Joel Moker suggests that the rise of useful knowledge is the key to technological progress and growth in modern economies. For instance, foreign direct investment in India, which was supposed to diffuse technology, didn't take place except in some enclaves. A culture of growth also requires the revolution of labor, production, and technology. India has locked down upon certain occupations, particularly those that are essential electrical welding etc, partially impeding organic innovation, partly impeding organic innovation in manufacturing. Industrialists say that India undervalues the vocational skills needed for manufacturing. Certain skills are not valued even if they command higher wages. Artisanal knowledge doesn't enjoy as much social respect as scholasticism or metaphysical abstractions. Increasing return and efficiency come from innovation and its diffusion, which are based on mass education and collective adaptive capacity. India needs deep industrialization, not just the service sector that has the power of changing the foundations of society. Thank you.